Welcome to LOA Today. Walt and life coach Linda Armstrong here. Today is Friday, August the 24th, 2018, 4 p.m. Eastern Time, your second and last daily dose of happy for the day and for the week. But it's been a good week, and we're anticipating a great weekend, too. In fact, I was mentioning to Tom Wells earlier today, Linda, that the weather's really settled down here in the Northeast, and things are not as humid as they used to be, and they're cooler in the nights and so forth. Like, this is turning into the August it's supposed to be instead of like an extended July.
Yeah, except I saw 92 coming up on like Tuesday.
Oh, really? Oh, well, we'll have to do something about that. A little energy work will help with that, right? But yeah, actually, that's the topic of the show today, because a few weeks back, Linda offered me a free session to experience what her services are like when she's doing work with her clients. And I thought that was a pretty cool thing for her to offer. So thank you, Linda, for offering it. And,
you're welcome.
And we did that today. We did it about 3 or 4 hours ago. And it was quite the experience. I mean, it was not like any other kind of coaching session I've ever had, I can tell you that. And like you just mentioned before the podcast, Linda, I now have a much clearer idea of what energy feels like, because I was feeling it. I was really feeling it, and I was excited to feel it. It was great. You know?
Yeah. Cool.
So yeah, it was good. So now the only thing that I really will have a little trouble doing here is explaining what happened step by step, because a lot of the time I was just focused on what you were telling me to do. So I'm not even sure exactly what we did in what order, but I'm sure you do. You were keeping notes and all that, but so you're gonna have to kind of guide us through that part of the stuff. But
okay, well, I mean, there's never any order. It's just whatever wants to come through at any given moment. Mm-hmm. So it's...
Well, the thing that I was most interested in during the session, not so much what I was anticipating coming into it, but what caught my attention and what really intrigued me the most during the session was not only feeling energy, but experiencing a flow of energy, which I don't think I'd ever felt before. I think now that I know what that is, I can say, yes, I have felt energy before. I'm not sure I ever felt that kind of a flow going, like I was experiencing it like in swirls and so forth. And that was kind of interesting. In fact, it kind of evoked in my mind the metaphor that Abraham Hicks uses, right, of the vortex, and Esther swirls her finger off to the right-hand side. That's kind of like what the energy felt like a little bit, although not quite as fast as she turns her hand. But it was a strange feeling, but it was a very pleasant feeling. It was just not something I was familiar with. I think that's what it is, and so it really caught my attention.
Well, you were just really flowing with that universal source energy. I mean, you were expanded into more of the truth of the fullness of who you are, not just the part of you that's contained within your body.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And so especially as we were releasing different things that were coming up, that frees you up. So it's like you release that energy that's unsupportive, mm-hmm. which we could maybe say feels heavy, even though we walk around with it every day. Mm-hmm. But then once you start releasing that and you bring in what I'll just call it light, this energy of the universe, it expands you. You start feeling more of the truth of you, even though we maybe can't hold on to that all day long, every day. But certainly when you have a session like today, you can feel the more of you. And that's the benefit of releasing the stuff that is actually in the way.
It's very similar to a light hypnotic state, too. It feels very similar to that. I suspect just because I was so relaxed, particularly as we got deeply into the whole session. But it's not like I was. It's not like I was out of control or anything like that. It was lightly hypnotic.
Well, because when I do the work, I raise myself into like a theta brainwave. So as I do that, you go along for the ride.
Oh, okay.
And, let's just point out here. I want to point out, I was thinking about it, I meant to say it to you before, but we're in two different places.
Yeah, that's right.
It doesn't matter where you are in the world. Energy doesn't have any constraints or boundaries or time or space. It just is. So that's why, I think right in the beginning, as soon as I made that connection, you told me you felt something.
Yeah, that really surprised me. In fact, as soon as the very first time you said, okay, I'm now going to come in with your permission, and I gave my permission, as soon as you, like within a second after that, all of a sudden it was as if there was this wave of something pushing against me. Not pushing, but coming in from the front is what I'm trying to say. And of course, I was looking at you in the monitor, so it felt like it was coming directly from you. And I'm thinking
Right.
that's pretty cool because, like you said, we're not even in the same state. We're in the same part of the country. That's about it. But we're nowhere near each other in terms of being in close proximity. And despite that, not only was I feeling it, but I was feeling it in relationship to where I was looking at you in the monitor. So the energy actually managed to come in the same direction that I was looking at you, which I thought was pretty cool.
Yeah. Well, yeah. And also, I think I'll just point out another experience you had is that, like, I'll feel, not all the time and not everything, but I'll feel things that my clients are feeling. So I think there were 2 times in particular where either I felt something in my throat and I asked you and you're like, yeah, I just felt something in my throat 2 seconds ago.
Yeah.
Or like at the very end, this rush of heat.
Yeah, the heat, that was interesting too. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it wasn't your typical heat. It wasn't like, the heat of the sun hitting you. For lack of a better term, I'll call it an energetic heat, a spiritual energetic heat, because it was almost like it was, it was almost like it was misty, a misty heat. Does that make any sense? I'm not sure if that does. But, like a misty rain is not solid water. It's a mixture of oxygen and raindrops, right? It's all kind of misted together there. That's kind of what it felt like to me. It felt like a misty energy coming into me.
Yeah, it's hard to find words for it, but
Yeah.
it's kind of like, plus, we disconnect, but the healing doesn't end. Like, that's why I was letting you know it's still going on for the rest of the day. It doesn't just turn off because we stopped the session. But it was kind of nice. Like at the end, it was almost like we were given this last big hug or like, before we ended. That was fun.
It was. There was also, I had to ask you now because it really wasn't appropriate to ask during it, but there was at one point where I don't remember exactly what particular thing we were going after. You were helping me go after a number of different things related to money. But there was one particular point where you said that my spirit guides were laughing. Why were they laughing? Do you remember that?
Yeah, let me try to remember, because when I get into that zone, that's why I usually take notes, because I don't always remember everything.
Yeah.
I'm like a conscious channel, but I'm not totally 100%. They're kind of like how you feel at the end of the session. You're kind of like somewhere else at the same time.
Yeah.
Let me see if I could. I think it had to do with you not realizing your connection, how connected you are to spirit.
Oh, okay.
Does that ring a bell to you?
It sounds about right. Yeah, I think it was somewhere because you mentioned that a few times, and I think that was close to one of the times you mentioned it. So
yeah, it was. I'm quite sure it was to do with that, and that's why they were kind of the way I perceived it, as if they're kind of laughing because you don't realize just how connected you are. Right? They're there for you, and so it was kind of like your guides were like ecstatic that you're feeling this, so that you know it, and that now you can start playing with it more.
Yeah. Well, that is the big takeaway as far as I'm concerned. I mean, hopefully there are some others too based on the work you were doing with me. But just in terms of the experience of it, my biggest takeaway is, first of all, you showed me a new way that I could kind of measure whether I was getting yes or no answers, right? Wendy had given me another one yesterday, so now I have 2 of them to start playing with. And that was big. That's a good thing, because now I've longed for a long time to have communications with inner being where I can actually understand what's coming back to me, I mean, you've talked about signs, others have talked about messages and so forth, and all the time I'm thinking to myself, what the bleep are you guys talking about? But now I have a way to actually get a message back, so that's cool. That's a big step forward for me.
I think even more than that, I think you'll start feeling energy, realizing you're feeling energy more than you have before, because sometimes I don't have to do a muscle testing or anything to know something. I can feel it. Like I'll get a surge of energy in some way. I'm like, oh, okay. Pay attention to this, or this is my answer. And especially the goosebumps or certain sensations I get, which let me know, yeah, this is it. You're on track. Go this way. Or this is the thing that, especially when I'm working with clients, I'll get more of a feeling like, yeah, you're on it. Stay here. Keep going with this part.
Well, I think what happened today in that regard is that this was really the first time that I consciously was aware of energy. Once you pointed out to me, you're feeling energy right now. Now I knew what to associate with.
Right.
And I'd actually felt stuff like that before, but I didn't know what it was, and I didn't think of it as like, energy from source or something like that. I just said, well, that's weird. What is that?
I know.
I had no association. You gave me an association, and once I had that, well, I think I told you there was one incident that instantly came to my mind back when my wife and I were on our honeymoon. We were in Barbados, and we were downtown Bridgetown, which is the big town on the island, and we were. I think we were just kind of walking around, just exploring, and there was a park there. And Louise said, "Let's go into the park. Let's see what's there." I said, "Okay." We took like 2 steps, and all of a sudden, I had that energy feeling. That now I know what to call it. It's an energy feeling, and that energy feeling didn't feel good. It felt a little bit uncomfortable, and so I just stopped. And she looked at me and she said, "What is it?" I said, "It doesn't feel right." And so we did a 90-degree turn, headed over toward the busy street that was over to the right. And as we got there, a taxi came over. And we met the guy who ended up giving us a tour of the island for the next 2 days. So it was actually a very good result to the whole thing. What were we being guided away from? I have no idea. But whatever it was, I did get something. And now I know that it was an energy.
Yep. And that's really fun because I think it was probably every show we've done so far. And even last week I said, one of these days I'm going to figure out what your thing is with energy.
Yeah.
We seem to ask the same question in different ways. But I think we know what that is now.
Yeah, well, I mean, part of that is me and you getting to know each other, and part of my approach with any of my co-hosts is not just to ask questions that I'm interested in, but to ask questions that I think my audience might be interested in. Right. So, in a sense, I was probably doing that, but to a large extent, you're right. I was exploring my own lack of information about energy, and this filled in a lot of gaps today.
So you know what? You know how sometimes you'll say, well, you can say something's called positive energy or something's called negative energy. Mm-hmm. But where you were floating today, what would you call that?
Energy.
Positive energy.
It did feel good. Yes. So I guess I would associate positivity with it. I don't know. Does negative energy feel different? I don't know.
Well, so why don't we look at it this way? When resistance came into your body, that we can call that negative energy.
That's true. Yeah. And it didn't feel like the energy. It felt like itches and scratches and scratchy throats and things like that. It was strange.
But that was an energy?
I loved it at one point where I said, "Oh, my nose itches. I'm rubbing my nose." He said, "No, don't rub your nose."
Yeah, we needed to clear it without you touching it.
Right, yeah. I've gathered that afterwards, like, oh, well, duh.
But then you could also see how you can have that sensation. Then we do some what I call clearings. Now you know what I mean by clearings. And then the sensation goes away.
Yeah, I have a better idea of that. I mean, some of the time you said you were clearing stuff or you were extracting beliefs that didn't serve me anymore or whatever, and I had no idea of what you're doing. There was no sensation with it. But there were other times where there was sensation. So, yeah, I do have a better idea of what that's like.
Yeah. Yep.
That's fun. So, I mean, this is what you do each time that you do a session. I mean, obviously there are variations because everybody's going after something a little bit different. But this is what I experienced is basically what you do during a session, isn't it?
Yeah, generally. Mm-hmm. That's basically it. Okay,
which is different. I mean, it's not what your typical life coach does. I mean, your typical life coach is maybe a little bit more like a therapist in a sense. It's a talking situation, and you were not like you weren't talking to me. You were talking to me, but. Right. You were really heavily oriented around the energy part of it, and that's what made it so different and so unique. But
it's like part of the conversation is I'm kind of digging around to see what beliefs, what subconscious programming you have going on, and that's when I'll do some muscle testing with you, and that's basically theta healing technique. And then today we went into another modality which is called the gate method. That not that many people do in the States anyway. It's really big in Israel and some other countries. So I bounced around 2 different techniques. There's a few other things that I do that I'll throw in there. And it's just whatever seems to be appropriate for what's going on in the moment is what I'm going to work with. So it's a blending.
Okay. Well, it makes sense. Your approach, though, is very unique, I think. From what I know, I can't say I've spoken with hundreds of life coaches, but I've spoken with quite a few. Certainly, all the co-hosts that I have, and your approach is really very, very unique, very different from what the others are. So that's why I keep touching on that. But how did you arrive at it? I mean, you kind of gave me a quick description while we were doing the session, kind of at the beginning. But how did you get there? That can't be something that you just kind of landed on from the beginning.
You mean to do it the way I do things now?
Right, right.
You know what? It's just it's kind of like this like snowball thing that keeps rolling. Put it that way.
Okay.
It started with the tear in my rotator cuff. I may have told you that before. As a karate instructor, it wasn't a great thing. You know, I thought it was a horrible thing. And it made me think that, you know, I don't want to be locked into teaching karate in Tenafly, New Jersey for the rest of my life. Like, and now I'm pushing 50 and I can't even lift my arm.
Yeah.
So I decided to look for something else to do. So I thought, okay, I'll get into internet marketing or something. So I took some course that really had you find what it is you're most focused on. Like, what do you search for all the time on the internet? Where are your interests so you can like build some kind of a product? Well, my interest was very much at that time in Abraham Hicks. Okay. So I somehow wound up in a law of attraction, a coaching academy. You know, I'm like, okay. But actually my intention with the tear at first was I want to find something I can do with anyone at any time, anywhere in the world. Right.
Okay.
So then I came to the coaching. Of course, you can do that. And I coach people from all over the place at any time, like from anywhere, right? Doesn't matter. I don't have to be in New Jersey or in my home in New York.
True.
So that kind of started it going. And then, you know what? Since you're asking, I might as well explain it. During that coaching academy, it was a year long. Halfway through, I received an email invitation to this Awakening Your Light Body course. And I didn't even know what it was. It was a meditation course. And I'm like, I can't meditate. You know, like I didn't think I could because I thought I had to empty my mind completely and I could never do that. So, but for some reason I was drawn to this. And so I signed up for it. Now I found out after I signed up for it, I wasn't supposed to be invited to it until after I graduated. But somehow I'm on this course. So, all right, I'm doing this thing. And, so the tear started in February of that year, which was like 2011 or something. I'm trying to remember, 10. By December, I decided I had enough of this shoulder. I'm going to have to just have surgery. And I called my doctor. I said, I'll come in January. I'm switching insurance carriers. I'll be there and I'll set up the appointment. But prior to that, we had a dojo Christmas party. And all these people who had this rotator cuff surgery were there talking about the misery of it, right? And I'm thinking, oh my God. And then I just somehow I got this message that I can heal myself. And so I thought, well, that's interesting. And they're telling their stories and I was somewhere else. I'm like, I could heal myself? This in my mind, is this possible? Like, where'd that come from? And I didn't put that much thought on it at that moment, but I did think, well, you know, maybe I won't have surgery. Maybe I'll find out about this healing myself thing. And wouldn't you know it, that meditation course that I was accidentally invited to, it was online. It would meet the first 3 weeks of every month. We were off for Christmas break. So come the first week of January, that course, it was starting a new module of this course, self-healing. I'm like, what? Okay, I'm on it. So within 2 months, through meditation, I healed my shoulder.
Very nice.
That was the start of it. Because then I was in this law of attraction, energy mastery course, a year-long certification. And during that time, I had this invitation to do Reiki. I'm like, I don't know what, I'm telling you, Walt, I knew nothing. I'm like, what the heck is Reiki? I had no clue. But I felt like I had to take it. I was compelled to take it. So I take that course. Meanwhile, I really couldn't afford any of these things, but somehow I'm making it work. I mean, each course was like $5,000, you know?
Ooh, ouch, yeah.
Yeah. So then so I'm taking the Reiki course. Now, prior to actually getting into the course, I start feeling this energy coming out of my hands. I'm like, what the heck is this? I had no clue. I really didn't. So I emailed the instructor. I'm like, there's something happening to my hands. Is this part of this Reiki thing that I signed up for? She's like, absolutely. The energy is just coming in. I'm like, okay. So I'm in Reiki. Now, everything's kind of been an accident, like the way things came to me. Now I'm doing Reiki and I'm doing law of attraction coaching and I'm doing this at my karate school and I offer this meditation course and I'm giving a free Reiki session to everyone who signs up. I wind up giving the session to this girl's mother. She didn't want it herself. That had the free session. while this woman's on my table and I'm giving her Reiki, she says, "Oh, there's this guy coming here from Israel. He's teaching something called the gate." I'm like, "The what?" Instantly, I knew I had to do it. I didn't know what it was. I'm like, what is it? She goes, "Oh, this acupuncturist that we know more, Balaban, she's bringing him here from Israel." I'm like, "Oh, you got to send me some information about this woman. I got to find out about this. I don't know what it is, but I feel like I got to know more." The next day, my husband says, we have a student of ours, John. He goes, "Yeah, John was telling me he just went to this acupuncturist. I think I might want to go. She sounds really good. She's an Israeli woman. Her name is Mor Balaban." I'm like, "What? No way." Because so-and-so's mom just told me yesterday about this guy coming here to teach this healing thing called the gate. And I know I have to find out about it. It's like, those are signs, it's like paying attention. Somehow, without even consciously, totally realizing it, I was following these signs.
Well, they sound like more than signs to me. They sound more like, traffic cops saying, "Stop! Go! Get going! Blow the whistle!"
Right, like that energy that stopped you and made you go the other way.
Yeah, yeah.
So I'm doing that. I'm doing gate now, and I'm doing that with people. And this theta healing thing was around. Like my instructor for the gate used to do theta healing. Some other psychic I met with, from England, actually, I had a session with her. She was doing theta healing. And then something else with theta healing. 3 times theta healing came to me. I'm like, "Oh my God, I got to do this too." So I signed up for that. I was going into New York City, doing that course over and over again. I took many of those courses. And so that was part of it. And then the next thing you know, reconnective healing comes in. So like there's so many things. It just keeps coming. So I'm just open for whatever wants to come. And I know that I somehow incorporate all of it.
But you aren't quite sure how. It just sort of happens as you develop the skills. Is that it?
I know how I incorporate all of it now is I just follow the guidance, because I've totally really opened up to this connection I have with spirit, where now I can actually know that it's a little tricky when you're not sure, when you're getting messages, whether they came from your own mind or they came from outside of you.
Yeah, that's a question I've raised a number of times with Wendy Dillard, and she's assured me, "Don't worry about it, just go with it. It's always a message."
Yeah. But, a lot of times you want to try and figure it out. So like some things will come. So how it helped me figure this out is because I would get a message, or because now I'm like, I'm doing some channeling now too, right? So I'm like, okay, so was that my own thought, or was that like, did that come from spirit? Like, I don't know.
It sounds like a question I would ask.
But that's what I'm asking myself, right? Mm-hmm. But the very next day, I'll have like a meditation group I was doing, and someone in the group tells the same exact words to me.
Oh, wow.
I'm like, "What did you just say?" Okay, I got that from my guides last night. Okay, that was from my guides. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And now, and even when I'd say even somewhere in this last year, actually, there's another psychic medium that I worked with and I've done courses with, that she would always ask me, "So when you're hearing something, or you have a message coming in, or we were in this meditation, did you get a message? Like, where did you feel it? Where did it come in?" I'm like, "What do you mean, where did it come in?" "I don't know. I don't even know if it did come in." I'd be like, "I don't know." She'd say, "What is it, in front of your head, above your head, behind your head, to the side? Like, where did you sense the energy?" I'm like, "I didn't sense anything." Right? Mm. But as I'm doing the work I'm doing, I realize I know exactly. Like, to me, I sense it kind of off in a 45 degree to the right side of my body. Like, that's where they are. And it's like I just feel this collection of energy kind of there. Like, at least now I have a place where I'm like, okay. And that helps me because it makes me decipher what's coming from my analytical mind or what's coming from spirit. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So okay. It just takes, like Wendy's right, because you just go with it. After a while, it sorts itself out, mm-hmm. and you kind of find your way with it, or you figure it out to some degree.
Yeah. Put it come to terms with it one way or another. That's for sure. Yeah. Now, during the session, there were a number of times where you would do something like this. You would start to maybe lead me through something or whatever, and then you'd stop, and then it was almost like you were mentally changing gears based on something. And I'm guessing that the something was some signal you were getting. So am I reading that right? That you
Yeah,
were starting to go one way, and then all of a sudden you got some signal, and it's like, no, no, don't go out that direction. Go this direction instead. That kind of thing.
yeah, yeah. I'm just listening.
Hmm.
I'm just feeling, sensing where to go.
And
You know.
so when you would come up with, there were a number of times that you had me repeat after you,
Mhm.
certain phrasings, and I recognized that to a large extent they were repetitive, although could not sit here and tell you what they were. But
Yeah.
there was a definite repetitive pattern to them. But
Uh-huh.
nevertheless, even when you were doing those things, each time I could sense the pause while you were kind of, I don't know what you were doing. I guess you were trying to receive whatever it was you were trying to receive. And then based on that, you were saying, okay, we're going to do this. We're going to do this. We're going to do this. We're going to do this other
Right.
thing over here. Just based
Right.
on all those. So you were constantly getting signals and then acting based on what those signals said.
Yeah, that's that. I'm led the whole way through.
Hmm.
And so because I'm connected to that energy, you felt that really good feeling energy.
Hmm.
Well, I'm really in that. And that's why it's like a high, like I'm in this other energy. And that's why sometimes I don't even remember everything that I said like 10
Mm.
minutes ago.
Right, right. Yeah.
And so I don't even know if I'm pausing or not pausing. I'm just following what's coming. So it's interesting that you said that, because then I can kind of feel back to like, oh yeah, okay.
Oh, yeah. That was a definite
Yeah.
pattern. The pattern was you would start to say something, you'd stop, pause for maybe 2 or 3 seconds, and then go in a different direction. Okay, we're going to do this.
Oh,
And,
okay. I'm
and
I'm actually remembering something now too. Like, because I think there was one time where I was kind of going to start going somewhere, and then I had this, like, maybe this image of you as a younger child, and I'm like, oh, okay, I better look over there. Okay, what do you want me to tell me about? So I guess I'm having this conversation. What is it that I need to know about this, and
mm,
how am I going to apply that to here? So yeah, I guess I'm in a conversation with spirit.
it sounds like it. Yeah, it
Yeah,
seemed like it from
yeah,
my perspective anyway. The other thing
yes.
that I noticed is when you were doing clearings, I don't remember exactly what the categories were, but there were four different kinds of clearings. One of them was within my life, one was ancestral, one was
Yeah.
soul, and I can't remember what the fourth one was.
So that's the theta healing part, where you're clearing beliefs across four different belief levels. So one's the core, which is this life here and now in the present. One is on the along your whole timeline, right? So it's past lives, future lives, whatever. It's like the whole timeline.
Hmm.
And then there's the ancestral line, and then the core, and then the soul level. So you're clearing, because beliefs sometimes they only reside on one level. And like if a belief is on that history level, which is all time, then you always want to resolve those. Like um, you're not just changing it; you're resolving it.
Okay,
Yeah,
but it does
yeah.
raise
Not
an
just
interesting
not just
question
believing.
because something
Yeah.
that other co-hosts and I have talked about here on the show is the question of why is it that we don't remember consciously, our past lives, so to speak. All that is kind of blanked out. It seems like this is an example of where it would be good to know what those are, so we know what we're clearing. And yet, despite that lack, you're still able to clear it anyway. So I'm sitting here kind of in like a dichotomy. On the one hand, it'd be good to know. On the other hand, well, I guess I didn't really need to. She did it. So
I know, because in our humanness, we're like, well, yeah, tell me the whole story so I can just figure it out and get it over with,
exactly,
right?
yeah, yeah.
No, but we don't sign up for that.
Apparently not. Yeah, which is kind of annoying.
We we come here and we have particular challenges or whatever, because it's all to expand our soul, expand our consciousness. And so I think that, I don't know for certain, but for me it feels like um it'd be too much to know all of that stuff, and it probably would be even more confusing. So rather come here for a certain purpose, and if some of that stuff shows up and it's in the way, well, there's ways to get rid of it and then keep going forward. So I don't know. Yeah, I really don't know. That's more of a question for maybe a psychic medium who really taps into that um, continually. That would be cool to have a. I know quite a few psychic mediums. I wonder if we can get on the show with us sometime. That would be fun.
Sure. Yeah. Well. Also, that raises another question for me because it struck me that a lot of what you were doing during this session was very similar to the kinds of things that a psychic would say. Because I've had a few psychic readings, and there was differences for sure, but there were some similarities to it.
Yeah, I mean, because I'm making that connection to spirit, and I'm receiving information. So, I mean, that's what psychics do too. I
Hmm.
don't look at myself as a psychic though, because, um, well, so far at this point, I seem to only really get into that zone when I consciously make. Well, actually, that's kind of not even a good answer. I don't know.
That was pretty good, though. I mean, you reverse field twice in one 20-second process. That was very good.
You know what? Sometimes you just don't. You kind of deny that you are as psychic as you think you are, because you kind of still don't believe like that you are. But
Hmm.
it's showing up all the time, and more and more and more and more. So it's always growing. But I don't have people come to me and say, is this in my highest good, or what's going to happen 2 years from now, or
Hmm.
I don't address those things. For me, it comes through when I'm working on clearing things that are blocking people.
Mm.
At least for this part, that's how I work with it anyway.
So let's
Um,
look at a couple of those signals you got. Like you mentioned just a few moments ago, how at one point you were getting something about me as a young child. What were you getting? Is that an image? Is that like a video? Is it audio? Is it physical sense of feeling? What is it?
well, the interesting thing is that until recently, I didn't get images.
Uh huh.
I just have knowings. It's like, I think it's clear cognizance. You just know. I don't know how I know it. I just know it. But I didn't used to see it in pictures, and that used to really boggle my mind and kind of piss me off, because I'm a graphic artist originally. I've been an artist my whole entire life. I mean, I'm very visual. I can walk into a dilapidated house and see it exactly how it's going to be when it's done, like in an instant. But when I would do this, it's like it would blow my mind. Even like in guided meditation, I didn't see full blown movies like some people see. And I'd have clients see this whole movie. I'm like, wow, that's so awesome. I wish I could do that. But lately, in this past month or two, I have to say, I'm getting more visual. So today I saw like a boy. I think he had a striped shirt on, and it was outdoors, and whatever the circumstances were. And I saw it more of a picture. I've been getting a lot more of that. Actually, I've been getting a lot of that lately, but that's new to me.
Hmm. That must be fun
Yeah.
though. That it's developing
Yeah.
that way, and so now you have this new way of experiencing the information.
Yeah, that is fun. I mean, sometimes I would have a picture without a picture kind of thing. Like it would come to me. It's like a knowing. But now I can actually see more, get more of a picture associated with it.
Hmm. Now, do you also get other sensory information, or is it primarily visual now?
No, it's mostly where I just know it.
It's just
It's
knowing.
not, the visual is like kind of new, I would say.
So that's like sort of like a little added bonus.
It's like a little added bonus so far.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. But the knowing is just it's one of those things that you really can't describe. It doesn't really fit tied to any particular sense. It's like it just
I
shows
mean,
up, so to speak.
I think everybody does that, without even realizing it. Sometimes you just know, you're like, well, how did you know to do that? And you're like, I don't know. I just felt it. I don't know. I just knew. Like,
Hmm.
only this is just a lot more of that. Does that make sense?
And a lot
Because,
more rapid fire too, because I mean you're getting a lot of knowing during a session. I mean,
yeah.
I don't know if I can convey this well enough, but during a session you are constantly interacting not only with me but whatever this stimuli that you're getting. I mean, it's just a continuous activity, and it never stops. It isn't like you're just sitting there for 5 minutes saying, "Okay, I'm going to wait for some inspiration." No, no, no. It's coming at you rapidly.
Yeah. Because so once I make that connection, it's there. So it's like the phone line is open.
Right, right, yeah, yeah. You're connected to the internet, and you got a good data connection.
Yeah. But I will say it's so much easier for me to do that with other people than to do it with myself. Because if I'm doing that with myself, then my own mind will kind of chime in too much. You know? Know what
So,
I mean?
so you're sort of like you're blocking yourself.
No, sort of like I might be trying to. Yeah, I guess I'm blocking myself with my own thoughts instead of just letting it flow.
Okay.
So like when I'm working with someone else, I'm just so open to whatever needs to come through. But I think that when I'm working with myself, I'm not as open for that, because my own mind of what I know about me will get in the way.
So what
You
do
know
you
what I mean?
do, or have you learned a way around that, or what do you do?
Yeah, I just play around. Like when if you know what it is, if actually this is what it is. I'll get stuff, but I'll maybe doubt it. So then I'll hook up with one of the psychic mediums I like to work with, and they'll tell me everything I already know. So
So you get
like, okay,
confirmation.
I
Uh,
get confirmation. I'm
yeah.
like, oh, I was just getting that. I was just, it's not, that came to me the other day. I wasn't really sure what it meant, or I didn't know if I made it up, or that kind of a thing.
Well,
Yeah.
it's
So
true.
it's just,
We all want confirmation. Confirmation is how we start to reconcile all these experiences with what's going on in the what is reality.
yeah. I guess maybe it's easier for me to trust what's coming in when it's not for my own self, because then I don't try to evaluate it or figure it out, because I don't have to figure it out. I'm just following what they tell me. You would think it would be easier just to do the same thing I do for other people for myself. But for some reason, I feel like there's a little bit of something where I don't get it. I don't, at least right now, I don't feel I get it as clear for myself as I do for my clients.
Oh yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense actually. I mean, in the field of medicine or law or whatever, like they say, if a lawyer represents himself in court, he has a fool for a client. Because what you really need is to have a separate person doing the defending for you. You get a better defense that way, or you get better
Yeah.
representation that way.
Right.
Or same
Right.
thing with a doctor. You really want that independent viewpoint from a doctor rather than trying to doctor yourself, at least
Yeah.
within the realm of traditional medicine, anyway. So yeah,
Yeah.
that kind of actually makes sense. I can see why it might be a little bit more difficult when you're trying to do it for yourself.
I don't think that I don't, hopefully that's not always going to be the case, but I think I can grow into being able to get my own stuff.
Yeah, probably. I would think. Yeah. I mean, look, what is
I
it?
mean,
The
I
last
do
couple of months.
already. Yeah, no, I do already. I kind of know.
I mean, last couple of months, you said you developed this ability to catch visual signals. So clearly, you're continuing to develop and expand and enhance your abilities. I don't see why that
Right.
wouldn't. Well,
Yeah.
I mean, that's got to continue, right?
And for me oh yeah. And for me that's like divine timing. So I wasn't supposed to have that yet. Now I have it now. Okay, good. What's next?
And apparently, you do get a very clear set of signals when something new is coming your way. Your guidance isn't vague. Your guidance is
No,
more
no.
along the lines of two by fours, right?
Yeah. No, it's there. It's there.
So that's
Yeah.
very, very, very cool stuff. Well, thank you. Yeah, that was really interesting doing that session today. I'm going to be interested to see how that carries over. I mean, like you pointed out, you said that the healing is continuing today, even now, 4 hours after we finish the session.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm also going to be curious to see what happens in the days that come, because I suspect if the result is as powerful as the session seemed to be, I suspect I'm going to see some stuff. I just don't know what.
Yeah, well, and neither do I. We'll have to see. But the other thing to keep, and I don't want to discount anything, but the way I look at it when I'm working is it's like peeling the layers of an onion to get to that pearl,
Yeah.
that inside, because there's so much stuff, and a lot of times when we start peeling this stuff away, more stuff comes up to the surface.
Makes sense. Yeah.
Now, my goal is when I'm working to try to get to the root of stuff, but sometimes I'm not going to be let in there because maybe it's too much. Maybe it's too much too soon. I don't really know what the reason for that is.
Mm.
So yeah, it could be. Definitely you're going to see some kind of difference. I would imagine for sure.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And hopefully there's also a long-term difference as well, which I think there would be. Just because, I mean, you asked me what kind of energy was it? And I said, well, it was energy. And you said, well, it was positive energy. So yeah, it was positive, I guess. Well,
Did it feel good or did it feel bad?
it did feel good. Yeah. So I guess that makes it positive energy because it felt good to me. But the simple fact that I was feeling it and that I was able to interact with it with your help, that tells me that I'm going to get more development along that line.
Yeah.
One way or
Did you
another, I'm just going to be more and more aware of when I am sensing energy. I'm going to be more and more aware of how to interact with it. I'll use the basic tools you've taught me and that Wendy's taught me, and I suspect it's just going to keep growing in terms of my ability to interact with it.
Well, especially if that's your intention. Sure.
Well, it has for a while, actually. And interestingly enough, it was not my intention, say, 15 years ago. Because, as I've told you before, my sister has been developing this stuff since long before I was doing it.
Right.
And when she first was telling me about it, I was completely dismissive of the whole thing. I mean, just no, not going there at all. That's just too woo-woo, too wacky. Like, oh, yeah, right. Join the real world.
Yeah, but look how quick you felt as soon as I connected. You felt the energy.
I
So I
did
mean,
very quickly. Yeah.
yeah, there you
which
go.
which I think is as much of an indication of how much growth I've gone through since I first learned about the law of attraction back in November 2007 as anything else. Because during
Yeah.
that time, I have been in my own stumbling way learning
Mhm.
stuff, picking stuff up, and you do that long enough, you pick up enough stuff that you do get better at picking things up. It's just, it's
Absolutely.
like any other skill, really.
Well, and it kind of maybe does come to that divine timing thing, though. Right things at the right time. Have you ever brought energy into your hands?
I've done a couple of things that I remember reading in books and such that you can do, or like our friends Mike and Anne Marie. Mike McEwen's also into Reiki. He's a Reiki instructor
Mhm.
and Reiki therapist, actually, or technician, or whatever they call it. And he was showing us a basic thing you can do to feel energy in your hands. But it's not something that I've done regularly. I remember having done it a couple times.
Yeah. And did you feel the energy?
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Because you can bring that energy into your hand. And that energy, that's healing energy. You just channel bringing that stuff through. So you can use that, like you have something, an injury of some sort, you can bring that energy in yourself and just put your hands over to that energy and do it. Um, my dad, who would never have believed in any of this stuff. Um, when I was first doing Reiki, I would give him Reiki and he'd be like, "Oh, I could actually feel that." Like it
Mm,
opened him up to that. But
right.
kind of left it at that. I've done some healing stuff with him here and there, and he kind of follows along. And like the stuff I was doing with you today, he's like, I don't really feel like saying all that stuff. I'm like, oh, can I say it for you? He's like, yeah. So that would do it that way for him. Um, but he recently he says, I was holding the TV remote and my finger started moving all by itself. Like I had this weird sensation, right? And I'm like, well, that's interesting. So I said, let me see if you can bring energy into your hands, Dad. I had him do this, simple technique to bring energy, and instantly he could feel this energy. Like
Mm,
I've never had people so instantly feel it.
yeah.
So it's like a part of him that he didn't even realize.
Hmm.
So I told him how to work with it, how to stretch it, how to enhance it, and so he had some injury on his leg or something like this, and so he's been putting it there and it healed it.
Mm,
Like,
that's
oh,
cool.
God, you're a healer,
Yeah.
keep it up. Yeah.
It reminds me of that. I think he was a chiropractor who now is a healer, globally famous. I mean, even though he's globally famous, I don't know what his name is. I can't remember. But when he gives his description about what he does,
Yeah,
he says,
Eric Pearl.
"Yeah, that's it, Pearl." Yeah, and
That's reconnective healing. That's one
reconnective
of the
healing,
things
yeah,
that
that's
I'm
it.
into.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I remember reading his book, and I remember him trying to describe what happened. He says, "What do I do? I don't know. I just put my hands there, and stuff happens."
Right. You know what? I like to refer his book out to people who are trying to find a reason for it or a scientific. I'm like, listen, in fact, I have a medical doctor I work with now who's very developing all of these things, but her conditioned analytical mind won't let go of some things. I'm like, this, you got to listen to Dr. Eric Pearl because he's just like you. He needed to have a reason for it. Like that part of the book where the woman asks, "How many strands of DNA do you have?" He goes like, "Everybody knows you've got 2 strands of DNA, and blah, 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 I can tell you everything about it." And then his next answer is, "I have 12." Like, what? It's a good book. That's a really, even if you never wanted to learn to do reconnective healing, it's a really good book to understand more about how energy can just come in.
Well, plus it's entertaining. He writes in an entertaining style.
Yeah.
So like you say, you don't have to believe what it is he's talking about, but it's enjoyable to read it anyway. It's just
But let me
fun
tell
to
you,
hear it, and you can hear it in the way he writes his prose. He's enjoying it. You can tell he's just having a blast with this stuff. He doesn't necessarily know what it is, but he's liking it.
yeah. Well, I actually went to a guy in New York City who's actually used to travel with him. Kelly Woodruff, I think is his name.
Mhm.
And I went to have one of his sessions and I could feel all that, like, my body twitching, my eyes going crazy, my feet moving different ways. And so, and I've done the first course. I didn't do the live course yet with him, so I'm not officially trained or certified in it, but I'll use this energy. I call this energy in too, especially with people. I was doing some of that with you today as well, but especially people who come to me in person and I have on my massage table. I'll walk around and I'll feel this energy, and it's amazing. And their feet will be twitching and the eyes will be going, just like he says in the book, the shoulder might twitch or,
Wow.
yeah. And they're like, I don't know why that was happening. I'm like, yeah, neither do I. We're getting healing, it's like you had these healers, they're working on you and they're doing this stuff,
Pretty
So,
crazy stuff, that's for sure.
yeah, we're
Yeah.
just a channel.
Well, actually, as you were describing that too, um, today's session was really helpful because it tied things together for me. I mentioned, for instance, what happened when Louise and I were on our honeymoon. Another thing that happened, and this happened fairly repeatedly and started about, I'm going to say 6 or 7 years ago. Louise was suffering for quite some time with migraines. And a friend of hers, I guess she'd joined a small group of women who were meditating on a regular basis, and they would do various kinds of spiritual stuff during that. I can't tell you exactly what. But one of them had gotten a hold of a piece of a Reiki manual. And it was one particular page that talked about sweeping energy away from a body to reduce a central point in the body that was experiencing pain or discomfort or injury or something like that. And she said, would you be willing to try it to see if we can get rid of the migraines? I said, well, sure. I don't know what I'm doing. But hey, I'm willing to try anything. So, I mean, literally we had this little scrap of paper, but it just had barely enough on it that I could at least get an idea of what it was that I was supposed to do. And so I read it and kind of went through it a couple times to make sure I had a good feel for it. I said, okay, well, let's give it a try. So she lay down and I started doing what the page described. And I was quite shocked. Her headaches were almost always in the same spot. And when I would hover my palm of my hand within about an inch or two of that spot, it was like there was this massive magnetic field there. And I'd move my hand away and it was gone. I'd move it there. And you could almost feel the magnetism of it going as you were going back and forth across it. I was thinking, wow, I never really expected anything that palpable. Now, did I call that energy? Kind of. I don't think I really associated that with source energy. I kind of wondered if it was similar, but I didn't really know. That's what your session today helped tie together. It helped me realize, yes, they're all the same kind of energy. They're all part of the same thing. So that was a big, big thing for me today.
Yeah. Yeah. That's cool.
Yeah.
Now, you know how today I had you do an embodiment where you tell your body a certain thing.
Yeah,
and then
right.
if your body has resistance, it'll show me, and then we'll handle the resistance as it comes. Well, that same thing. And it's funny because I was actually in one of these gate healing courses. And one of the women in the course was having a big luncheon for everybody. Now, at the time, I was getting these little migraine things, but not like a headache. I'd have that flashy, like those jagged zigzags of light in the peripheral of my eye. Like, it's really annoying. I don't know if you've ever experienced that. It's a migraine without the headache.
Mm-hmm.
So my son had come across some information that if you eat almonds or drink coffee, it goes away. So that's what I would do. I would drink a cup of coffee and it would go away. If I'd be teaching karate and I send my son out to get me some coffee because I got these jagged line migraine thingies going on, drink the coffee, done. So now here we are in this course. We're all learning to do the next level of this gate healing. And this woman's has this beautiful home and she has it catered and we're having lunch. I start getting those lines, right? And I'm like, oh my God. And it was really strong. We were outside in the bright light. I told my husband, I'm getting these really bad things with the lights, like this migraine thing. And I went inside. I didn't see any coffee anywhere. Now, I didn't want to ask her because if she didn't make it, she was going to feel bad. And look at all the stuff she just did. And I didn't want her to feel bad. She just made a beautiful lunch for everybody in this beautiful home. So I told my husband, I'm going to sneak out and I'm going to go down into town and to Dunkin' Donuts and get a coffee. I'll be right back. Right? He tells me, why not just do an embodiment that you already drank the coffee? I'm like, oh, I never thought of that. So I just sat down and I did this embodiment. I told my body, I said, show me how you would feel and what it would be like in general, having just drank a huge cup of coffee. And I'm telling you, boom, because my body knows. See, this is the difference. My body already knows that if I drink coffee, it goes away. So I just commanded my body to do that. I'm telling you, within a minute, gone. It was like I drank the coffee when I didn't drink coffee.
So what do you attribute that to? I mean, if you were going to try to explain that in concrete terms, which of course we can never really do, how would you try to explain that?
I brought in a reality into my system. And that's what I was doing with you today, bringing in a reality. Remember at the end, I said, we're asking that this embodiment be manifested in your life.
Right.
So that's what we're doing. I'm creating, maybe you can say, a pocket of information to be manifested. So I created having drank a cup of coffee. Now that was an easy one because my body already knows that. I didn't have to do any clearings for it. I didn't have any resistance to it because I know how to do that. So it happened instantly. So if it was something like, that I want to double my clients over the next 3 months, I probably have some resistance to that it could happen that fast.
Sure.
So I would have to do the work on myself, and I can do this work on myself. This I can do on myself. And then as I feel the things come up, I would just clear whatever comes in. So I can do this kind of work on myself. I can receive messages for that kind of thing. But definitely, I know resistance would come up for that, and then I would have to clear it.
And
does that make sense?
It does make sense, yeah. And as you're saying that, I'm also realizing that one of my original questions was, and the questions that I would ask, in past episodes of the show, well, we're talking about energy and the energy work that you do. I would ask, what is it that you do when you clear? And your answer was basically, well, I clear. That didn't really answer a whole lot, So now here I am. I'm sitting on the other side of having done a session with you, and you were telling me, okay, I'm going to clear this, I'm going to clear that, and I still don't know what you did. Well, and I'm not even sure you could tell me what you did.
So, you know what I did? I was a channel for the healing to come through.
Okay.
It's not me, it's spirit.
Okay.
So whatever they're doing, I don't know what they're doing. All I know is I'm allowing it to happen.
You're like Eric Pearl. You're putting your hands there, and I don't know what's going on, but something's happening.
Yeah. So like you could have that, that feeling, whether it was the throat thing, which that took a little longer to clear, or some of the feeling in the jaw, I think it was.
Yeah.
And then it was gone after we said this certain statement, which was, asking to release everything that was the cause of that sensation. It went.
It took some time. You're right. I mean, we had to go through it 3 or 4 times, and you kind of came at it a few different ways too.
The throat one took a while. That was a stubborn one, which is good because, we like that because that's just showing that we're getting to something. You had some sensation in your jaw. I think that went pretty quick.
Yeah, it was about 1 or 2 rounds, so to speak, for the jaw to be cleared. But the throat took like 5 or 6 attempts, and at one point you basically said, "Okay, let's move away from that for a bit."
Right, let it just do.
Yeah.
Oh, I could tell you a story.
What?
Oh my God, time 4:52. Okay, so kind of in the beginning of doing this work, I had this young girl come to me, and she has having trouble keeping food down.
Ooh.
She couldn't eat basically. So the mother was like, I don't know what else to do. So she came to me, and I was only doing the gate. I didn't do any of the belief work, any of that kind of stuff. And this used to happen to my husband, so it didn't shock me too much, but she would start twitching. So my husband, sometimes when resistance comes for him, it's like a twitch, like a ratchet, like his shoulders, like on a, and then he clear it and it stops. Well, this girl, she had her fingers start kind of twitching, and then her feet. And after a while, her whole body is twitching. Okay. Now she's like 16, 17. And I'm doing this. I'm like, oh my God, what's going on? I wasn't clearing. And I'm like, everything I was I was throwing everything at her. I was doing you name it. Anything I could think of that I've ever learned in my life.
Right.
Praying, I was doing it. And it wasn't stopping. Right. So then I'm like, oh my God. Okay. So in the meanwhile, her mother went out around the town to get some shopping a little bit to come back. I said to her, what did you eat today? And she's like, not really. I'm like, all right, let me go get you some Gatorade. Because I know I had Gatorade in the refrigerator because my healing space is in my karate school.
Uh-huh.
So I open the door from my space and I go to get the drink. Her mother's there. So her mother starts walking back with me. I'm like, oh shit. The mother's going to see the girl freaking out. She's going to go crazy. And I'm going to be like sued. And I was like, oh my God. But I kept it together. And I'm like, I had her drink thing. And the mom told me afterwards, I don't know how I was calm watching her like that, but something came over me. And the thing is, I know that their grandfather was the girl's grandfather was in the room with her, because this thing with her not being able to keep food down was a connection to her grandfather passing.
Wow.
And this girl, she felt her grandfather with her. I felt the grandfather with us. And that mother's like, he must have been there, because I don't know how I didn't freak out. And she's like a hypochondriac mother. Okay.
Lovely.
So this girl is still twitching. Even after I give her that, I have her stand up. I do all these different techniques to take her out of the session. And she's still kind of twitching. I'm like, all right, let's go out on the mat. And I want you to roll around on the mat. So I'm rolling with her on the mat, because you can always reset your energy by rolling around on the floor. That's why 2-year-olds do it.
Oh, really? That's interesting.
They have a tantrum. Yeah, roll around the floor. So that helped a little bit, but she still had a little. I'm like, meanwhile, I don't know. At this point, I'm like, I don't know what's going on. But I'm like, don't worry about it. It'll be fine. Just make sure you get her something to eat. Call me later when you get home, whatever. So it turns out that the twitching went away. She was able to eat. No problem.
Wow.
Right. But meanwhile, I get a hold of my teacher in Israel, and I'm like, I don't know what happened. He goes, well, first thing you should have done is work on your own fear. Do some work with yourself right there and then, because I was getting fearful that she's not stopping twitching.
Right.
And then he explained to me that what she had going on was so locked within her that it just had to process. That's like with your throat today. I knew it just had to process. We did the clearings, and now it's up to the body to just let it continue to process out. So that's what happened. And the funny thing with this girl is, like, a couple of days later, she was shopping with her mom, and they never do that because she never felt good enough to do it.
Oh.
And they're looking at earrings and stuff, and all of a sudden she starts twitching. She's like, "Oh my God, I'm twitching!" But the little girl, I call her little. Anyway, she goes, "I'm gonna put." She put her hand on her belly or something, and she just said, "I'm gonna have it calm down." And she managed to calm it down for herself.
Oh, nice.
Right,
Nice.
And it was just little residuals, but then then it just disappeared. So, yeah, it's a lot of unusual stuff, because this stuff. The body is that vehicle you travel the earth with, right? And I know we're running out of time here, but it contains a lot of information, right? It's in the cells of your body. That's why when I'm doing stuff with you, I'm like, let's download for you what it feels like and what it'd be like in general, and I download a feeling sense to you, like to freely communicate with my guides. If you don't know what that feels like, Spirit's downloading it into every single cell of your body. So that's the thing. We have all this stuff stored within our cells. And so when it gets released, sometimes it releases real quick. Sometimes it needs to process itself out.
Very interesting stuff. Well, like you say, we are kind of running low on time, and I do need to get a couple messages out. And these are not messages that you have to wait for Spirit to send, because I'm going to send them right now. First message is, we want all of our current listeners who have been listening for some time, who are subscribers. That's really what I'm looking at, is subscribers. We want all of you, if you are enjoying the show today, we hope you are, to just take a moment and go onto your social media channel of choice and post something about loatoday.net, because we're finding that is doing something very concrete to boost our numbers. It almost certainly has a law of attraction aspect to it. It also has a more practical social media aspect, because that's how social media works. But whatever, it's definitely working. I'm seeing the graph increasing, and it's increasing steadily. So please, even if you've done it before, do it again. In fact, let's get into the habit of doing it regularly whenever we're listening to one of the podcasts. And if you are not yet a subscriber, we want you to become one, because, well, first of all, if you're liking this episode, you're going to like all of them. Trust me, they are all great. That's why we have so many loyal subscribers who just keep listening over and over and over again. So become a subscriber. Go to the homepage of loatoday.net. You'll find the instructions on how to do that. It's real simple. Takes about a minute. And when you're done, all these episodes that we do, as we do them, get sent to your smartphone every single day. And then, Linda, for somebody who wants your treatment, because clearly after this episode, there are a number of people who are salivating for it. So how do they reach out to you?
You can always go to my website, lovemylife.coach. You can email me, Linda at lovemylife.coach, or go to my YouTube channel. There's lots of good stuff up there that I'm sure you'll enjoy. So you can subscribe to that, and you can leave me, comments below, to interact with the stuff that I do and teach and share. Any of those ways.
Great. Well, Linda, first of all, thank you for doing the session with me earlier, and thank you for doing this session just now. This is a great episode, so thank you for sharing. Hope you have a great weekend.
All right, thanks.
And we hope that you'll join us next time as well here on LOA Today. Goodbye, everybody.